lace up those cleats and put on those mitts. It's time for another exciting edition of Our Little Yankees Podcast. Stepping up to the mic, it's the OLIP team.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, and welcome inside another exciting edition of Our Little Yankees Podcast. We're on episode 9, folks. We are hyped. We had a little bit of a week off for the holidays, so hopefully you all had a Merry Christmas, you had a Happy Hanukkah, and now you get ready for a fabulous new year, which will be coming at you at this point on Tuesday, a little under a couple of days, 3 days from now, New Year's Eve, and then you got New Year's Day. As always, I am joined by the incomparable Josh Levin.
What up, what up?
And my man, the chosen one himself, Eric Ray Sepulveda. What up, E-Ray?
How's it going, everybody?
Did you guys have the chosen one? Did you guys have a good obviously, Josh, we asked you about Hanukkah last time, but E-Ray, did you have a good Christmas?
Yeah, so I think we talked about it a couple weeks ago, but I'm not on it now, but I did get a computer chair.
Oh,
you did? I didn't know that.
I did. I got a computer chair. It's lovely.
Did one of the loyal listeners of Our Little Yankees podcast buy it? Because we did put it in the
maybe
podcast.
Maybe, I don't know, but I haven't tried it on yet per se. But
how do you try on a chair?
I don't know. You sit on it. That's what I meant. But yeah, man, I'm excited for that, and I got like money and stuff like that. But yeah, it was a good Christmas.
Nothing Yankees related. I mean, Josh got his Garrett Cole and Jason Dominguez cards over the last couple of weeks. Did you get anything Yankees related?
No, I didn't. I'll wait for the Yankees to actually give me something.
Oh yeah, I like it.
Yeah, see, you putting the pressure on them to make it so that you have to worry about. All right, I dig that absolutely. For those of you who haven't noticed, E-Ray has changed his background, and I've changed my background again. So we're playing musical chairs as always. The lighting in my room was a little weird, and E-Ray wanted a little bit more lighting. For those of our OLIP family that watches us on YouTube, you'll be able to see that right now. E-Ray, we're hyped to see you come into the light a little bit.
I know. I was so on my computer chair that I forgot about the new background, but I'm switching it up, baby. That's what I do, Switch it up, like you said.
Yep.
You gotta keep the crowd on their toes.
See, with the lineup, you and I, we get switched around a little bit, but Josh is the constant. He's always in the hole. He's always sitting there. He's holding it down. He's putting up the big numbers. And the manager has to switch us a little bit every now and then because ultimately, who knows? Sometimes my background's a little wonky. Sometimes your lighting, or most of the time your lighting's pretty bad. So, ultimately, when it boils down to it, it adds a little bit of flavor to the YouTube edition of the podcast. As far as everything going on, and as far as the Yankees, well, taking a week off didn't really put any pressure on their feet, so to speak, because DJ LeMahieu is still not signed. The Yankees have still refused to make big moves, and as we kind of all expected, and I think, Josh, you kind of decreed on our last episode of the podcast, we wouldn't see anything until after New Year's Eve. So I would ask you if you guys are surprised, but odds are none of us are.
No, not at all. I mean, it's the 29th, so we got a couple more days until 2020 is finally over. But yeah, nothing. I mean, as far as the Yankees go, nothing is happening until January. It's at some point, we hope. The Padres, on the other hand, are they the only team in baseball? Because they're the only team doing anything. So, but yeah, I mean, as far as the Yankees go, this is not a surprise.
Yeah, this is just going to drag on, and it's going to drag on for our miserable sakes, and we'll see what happens, what the Yankees do. But yeah, man, the San Diego Padres are going for it. It'll be nice if the Yankees would act like that. I read an article the other day that, the Padres are kind of acting like the Yankees of old, right? George Steinbrenners, they're going for it. The Dodgers just won the World Series. They just added Blake Snell, Yu Darvish. I mean, if I'm a San Diego Padres fan, I'm very excited right now. And you like to see, especially right now with the way baseball and the rumors of teams cutting payroll and stuff like that, especially like the Rays trading Blake Snell, who literally just made it to the World Series. The Padres are going all in, and that's what you want to see. Kind of wish the New York Yankees would do that too, but we'll see what happens yet. We can't rag on them yet because, again, it's just all rumors and rumblings. We got to see what they actually do. So
Absolutely. As we kind of expected when a few weeks ago we first heard the news of a Blake Snell trade, Padres capitalized on the fact that the Tampa Bay Rays wanted to shed payroll, as they always do. They don't want to pay Blake Snell, who's going to be, set to make, I think around $10.5 million now in this next season. And then he's going to be making 12.5 and then finally around 16. So he's going to cost money. And therefore they're like, all right, let's get the hell out of here. Let's do what we always do, which is shed the payroll for prospects. And I think the actual deal that Jeff Passan tweeted about a couple of days ago was that the Blake Snell trade was going to be centered around their pitching prospect, Luis Patino. And then they were also going to throw in catcher Francisco Mejia, Cole Wilcox, and Blake Hunt, who is a young catcher as well. Might have changed here and there. That was the last Passan tweet I saw. But that looked like what the haul was. And you know what? That's a good but not an amazing haul for the Rays. And Blake Snell gets to go to San Diego. And you know what? For Yankee fans, we should love this because the Rays are coming apart, as they always seem to, after being the Yankees' biggest competition this year.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, if you want to look at it from a Yankee perspective, it's a good thing for them because, like you said, it weakens their biggest competition in the division. Ira, you sent this to me or to us yesterday, but it's true. The three biggest moves the Yankees have made in the last number of years have been signing Garrett Cole and then watching the Red Sox trade Mookie and the Rays trade Blake Snell. And, it's kind of just the way things are right now around the game, but also with the Yankees too, that those, two of those three are contending teams shedding stars because they don't want to pay them. And this is what the Rays do. We knew this would be happening. We talked about it weeks ago when the rumblings first started. I said they will trade him. I didn't know it would be so soon, but, he's in San Diego now. The Padres are doing the smart thing, right? They're looking around the league and seeing, okay, there's teams that don't want to spend money right now, but let's take it on because what we can do is we can offer them prospects because we have a great farm system and we won't really be hurt by it too much because we have still a great farm system and a really good major league roster as well. The Yankees should be looking to make similar moves. Now, I don't think the Rays would have traded Snell in the division, and I don't think the Yankees would have wanted to give up the prospects to a division rival, especially a team like the Rays who really gets the most out of their players. So, obviously we would love to say, oh, well, the Yankees, they were in on Snell and let's see if they can get him. But obviously that's not going to ever really happen. When the Rays traded David Price, the Yankees weren't really involved there. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it's going to be.
The price is always higher in the division.
Yeah, of course. And that's the way it should be. The Rays don't want to be beaten by Blake Snell in a Yankee uniform however many times a year. So
yep. But the Darvish trade to play off of the point is one that if you're the Yankees, you just say to yourself, how are you not making? Because ultimately at the end of the day, and Passan tweeted this one too with the Darvish, the Padres deal on the verge of happening, tweeted last night that it's expected to be Darvish and Victor Caratini for Zach Davies and 4 young prospects, Owen Cassie, Reggie Preciado, Ismael Mina, and Jason Santana. They didn't give up one of their top 100 prospects in the deal. And they have a loaded farm system. And the Yankees farm system is no schmucks. But if you can say that you can get a quality, if not top level number 2 starter on your rotation and don't have to give up any of your top level prospects to get him, it just really makes no sense that the Yankees weren't even apparently in the waters to do that.
Yeah, and if you remember a few weeks ago when Lance Lynn got traded, we said the same thing. We said they weren't involved and we didn't understand why. And Lynn is making a significant amount less than Yu Darvish is. Yep. So if money was the reason for Lance Lynn, then we know the reason for Darvish because the prospect haul could have been matched easily, I think. I don't think the Yankees would have had to give up Schmidt or Garcia. Definitely not Jason Dominguez. So, but Darvish is 34 years old. So there's a couple of things that aren't really on his side, which is his age and the salary. He's making $22 million in this upcoming season. And then the 2 seasons after that, $19 million and $18 million, finish the contract at 36, 37 years old. So, that'll be when we get a reasoning, when the reporters start to hear, oh, well, the Yankees weren't involved because of the money and the age. And for that, I don't really fault them. But it would be encouraging to see them at least be in the, to at least check in. We want to see reports that the Yankees looked into it, but they decided not to. That's what we want to see. We don't want to see, the Yankees weren't involved at all, because that's not encouraging. That's the opposite of what they should be doing. And we'll probably get to this. I don't know if we want to go there right now, but another guy who sort of fits the bill of what the Yankees are looking for, which is a top of the rotation starter on a team that doesn't want to pay him, is Luis Castillo.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a direction that the Yankees need to be looking in.
That's the type of guy that I think we all want, right? He's a good young pitcher, controllable years, but back to the Yu Darvish thing, it's kind of the Yankees that for Castillo, you would have to give up probably top prospects for that. And for that type of pitcher, I would be able to do that. I think right now on this pod,
because if you give up Debbie Garcia and Jason Schmidt, you hope that they become the consistent major league performer like a Luis Castillo does, you know.
Oh, of course. And I think I love Clint Frazier. We've talked about how valuable he has been this past season and how he can be a factor in the coming years. But I think for that type of pitcher in Luis Castillo, I would be willing to trade Clint Frazier. This is the type of deal I think I would be willing to part with Clint Frazier a little better for a guy with Luis Castillo. I mean, guys, again, I talked about the graphic they keep showing on the S Network, Hot Stove Show. This pitching rotation is not ready. This is not. We are
bad
to perform with this pitching rotation.
Yeah.
So
you could argue that's not even a playoff rotation.
So yeah. So like you said, you kind of just wish the Yankees would be in these conversations. Blake Snell was never going to happen, but yeah, just to see them in these type of conversations would be a little more encouraging. It's kind of concerning now, but again, the offseason, the hot stove seems to just be getting going now. So. There still looks like a lot of time left, so we'll see what happens. But
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of names. There's a lot of guys that are still out there, so we're not even close to over. And they don't even know what the rules are for the upcoming season. You know, we don't know when the season's starting. We know nothing about it in terms of how it relates to COVID. So nobody's signing because these teams are like, what's going on? That's part of the reason. And that's a baseball issue, but we don't have to get into that right now.
I just want to say one thing more about the Rays trade. And you speaking, Josh, about – I think you said this a couple weeks ago when we talked about the Snell rumors. Listen, the Rays, the player they got back, right, the big prospect, Luis Patino, he's probably going to be good. He is good. He's a good young pitcher. And the Rays, they do these type of trades, and it always works out for them. It does. The Rays – it always works out for them. But the issue here is that this trade is not good for baseball. And I think Josh said that a couple weeks ago. The fact that the Rays, who made it to Game 6 of the World Series, just traded away their ace to shed money. This is not good. And then you have teams, I think I saw this mentioned on Twitter too, you have all these teams, especially the Yankees. I think I saw an article about the Baltimore Orioles trying to be like the Rays. You have all the Yankees, all these teams want to be like the Rays. But the issue is what the Rays are doing is not good for baseball.
No.
Oh, yeah. Of course the owners want to be like the Rays. They want to succeed with less money and not playing their players, but that's not how it's supposed to be and how it should be. So what the Rays are doing is not good for baseball. Yeah, they're probably still going to be competitive next year and they're going to compete for the division. But it's better without Blake Snell. It's better without who else did they trade? Is that all they traded?
They didn't have.
Today they traded Alberto. They just traded Jose Alberto, a couple hours ago. So yeah, it looks like they're wheeling and dealing. I hope they get rid of Choi. That would be great for.
Yeah, especially for Gary.
I want to see him way gone.
Yep.
And a Rosarena.
Yeah.
Yep. What I will say to play off of your point, E-Ray, is it's weird because you get these mixed signals too, because the Rays just traded Blake Snell and all the other pieces we mentioned to shed cash. But on the other end of it, you got San Diego, who's now going out there to acquire these big-time players who have big-time monetary contract values and not really caring, which from a Yankees perspective is almost as annoying. If you saw every other team going out there and having to do what the Rays did because the owners were so money-grabby that they wanted to make it so they didn't have to pay their players and they were therefore devaluing them, you would say, this sucks, but this is also what everybody in baseball is doing. But it hurts so much more as a Yankee fan when you see that the Rays are doing it and you're trying to emulate a team that you want to beat rather than teams like the Dodgers and the Padres who will go out there and get who they need to win, who will do what needs to be done in order to take their team to the next step and don't care what the value needs to be in order to get it done. And the Yankees should be on that level of things. So to see that that thinking still does exist, but the Yankees are actively choosing not to do it and are rather siding with the team that has now beaten them to get to where the Yankees need to be based off of where they are right now, that's what's most frustrating, at least from my perspective.
I agree. And I think, like Ire said, when you have teams such as the Rays or as the A's have done in the past, where basically they kind of cut around corners to, be as successful as possible while spending as little money as possible. Now, I don't want to sit here and say that the Yankees don't spend money. I mean, they have a high payroll. They have a top payroll in the league. The issue is that they need to be more aggressive, I think, is what we're concerned with. And so, yeah, if and the topic of how this is for the game, like Ire said, when you have a few teams that are successful at doing this, every team is going to try to do the same thing because they think, well, we don't have to pay these players what they are, deserving of making. If Tampa does it that way, we can too. And I get the thinking, and I understand there's merit to it because the Rays have been successful with this type of baseball, but the Yankees should be using their resources to their advantage rather than kind of just lay it and wait and, kind of pick up pieces and stuff.
Exactly,
and when there's the big fish like Garrett Cole, they go. But they need to be more aggressive when it comes to the supplemental parts of the roster. And we're not saying that they need to go and sign Trevor Bauer and sign DJ LeMahieu and, name your other free agent that you want to name. We want to see them just be smart and aggressive on trades like the Padres are being right now, where they're seeing the league do one thing and they're going the opposite way. They're seeing a bunch of teams that are afraid to spend money for various reasons. And they're saying, let's jump on this let's capitalize on this while we can. They traded for Mike Clevenger in July or August, and they traded for Yu Darvish and Blake Snell in back-to-back days.
And I think the best thing about that was not just that they trade for Clevenger. Clevenger got hurt, and they just weren't like, well, now we're screwed. So because we got his contract, they were like, let's make up for it. Let's go out there and get Blake Snell because we lost Mike Clevenger.
Exactly. And the Yankees, I feel, in a similar situation last year when they added Garrett Cole. They were like, okay.
In the background, in case you guys hear that.
Hey, Rocco. When they signed Garrett Cole, it seemed like they kind of just folded up shop and put their feet up and were like, we're good. We got the guy we needed to get. But like you said, the Padres, they made a big move and then the guy got hurt and they didn't sit there and say to themselves, all right, well, we tried. They continued to go for it. And that's what we want to see our team do because, in terms of competing for a championship, the Yankees are ahead of the Padres.
Yeah,
they've been doing this for longer. They have more experience on their roster. I think in a full season, 162-game season, the Yankees are a better team than the Padres. Maybe not anymore. But
not anymore. With the
Yankees are further along in their, championship pursuits than the Padres are because the Yankees players are, while they're still young, they're much more veteran laden than San Diego is, and that's where you get frustrated because you see a team whose window, is narrow, just like the Yankees is, and you want to see the Yankees jump through the window rather than just like kind of watch it close.
Well, I mean, we did see the Yankees. You talk about Garrett Cole last year, right? I mean, we did see the Yankees pull a similar move to what the Padres did back in 2018 when we did get Giancarlo Stanton, right?
Yes.
It's Game 7 of the ALCS, one game away, and Giancarlo Stanton was there, and we took his salary and we traded Starlin Castro and a couple other prospects. That was the move to make, right? That was the Yankees back then, like, going for it. But just because – and so far, I mean, Stanton had a great postseason this year. That was the type of move that you want to make. And so far, it hasn't worked out yet. We still haven't succeeded in that goal. But that doesn't mean that you should stop, right? That's what we're saying.
Right.
Like, we got Giancarlo Stanton, we got Garrett Cole, but like Josh was saying, the supplemental pieces. I don't need Trevor Bauer, but we need some pitching. We need some other guys. We need our name, our name and the Yankee name in this rumblings in these news. We need pieces. So that's what will help this.
They get complacent, and they got complacent after signing Garrett Cole last year, and they got complacent at the deadline after they needed bullpen help. And now it looks as though, with the exception of us and the team hopefully signing DJ LeMahieu, it looks as though they'll get complacent going into this year with the minimal help. Brian Cashman did an interview, I think, a week ago on WFAN, and he kind of just did classic Brian Cashman speak, which is, we're out there, we're looking around. If we like something, we'll go with it. We're still going to have a top payroll. You know, some of the rumors are true, some of the rumors are false. It all really depends, blah, 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 blah. You know, the usual Brian Cashman stuff. That's what you can't have. And that's why, to me, that Mike Clevenger move, and you guys agree with it, is so what the Yankees need to be doing, because it's not lying in wait. It's going out there and taking hold of what you need to take hold of. It's not saying, this guy got hurt, well, we made the move, can't make up for it now, just got to do with it. It's, this guy got hurt, well, guess we need another starter again. Let's go get one. So if they're just going to sit back and relax and say, whatever happens will come to us, well, you know, it might not be the Red Sox and the Rays who pass them, because they clearly don't give a crap whether or not they improve their team, because both of them are selling off key pieces. But I can guarantee you, when push comes to shove, we'll see this year that teams like Houston, who might try and get better this year, or the Chicago White Sox, or whoever it is,
Blue Jays and other divisions.
The Blue Jays. Eventually, there will be other teams that supplement them, because the league does get better, even if Boston and Tampa don't.
Yeah, and I think, you know, just to kind of put a bow on this, we'll see what happens with Luis Castillo. If he gets traded, and the Yankees are not involved in that is where you have to really take a look and start to say to yourself, what is going on? Because he's got 3 years of control left. He's just in 2021 is his first arbitration season. He's going to make $4.4 million. So they would have him for 3 full seasons. If he gets traded and the Yankees aren't involved, that is when I would push the panic button and start to and really have to question what's going on. If he's traded to another team and the Yankees are in, but they just can't match the prospects or choose not to match the price, that's one thing. So that's kind of where I feel right now, where I'm kind of at, regardless of LeMahieu or Tanaka or any other free agent. If and when Castillo gets moved, the level of involvement there will tell me what I need to know about kind of where this team is right now in terms of roster improvement. Yeah.
I hope they prove us wrong, but I just don't see the Yankees making that type of move, because I think they are in love with their prospects. You know what I mean? Cashman really does love his prospects, but I would hope that, again, I am not for just getting rid of prospects in the wrong deal, of course, but as we were saying today, Luis Castillo is that type of guy that you trade your prospects for. I think Debbie Garcia more, because we've seen him more. I think he's going to be good. Clark Schmidt, we didn't really see as much, but supposedly he's supposed to be very good. But Luis Castillo is already good. You know what I mean? So what, like you said, Josh, we're gonna again see if they're just involved in the conversations. But the Rays got weaker.
Yep.
They lost Blake Snell and Charlie Morton. And we keep talking about the Yankees window. This is the time where you should be aggressive and you should strike.
If Luis Castillo is for real, that is why you do, and not for real as in is he for real as a player, but is for real as a trade target. That is why you don't lie in wait. Because if I say to the Cincinnati Reds, all right, we're going to give you Clint Frazier, we're going to give you Debbie Garcia, we're going to give you Clark Schmidt, whatever else you might give short of Jason Dominguez or anything like that, give us Luis Castillo. Then you go out there and you sign the Michael Brantley to make up for losing Clint Frazier. Then you go out there and get another bullpen arm or get a back-end rotation guy to help round out that rotation, because you just found a way to make yourself better and also found a way to give yourself the space that needs to be done in order to improve your team. Now, maybe the fact that they haven't done it already adds into that, but the only way it gets worse is obviously if this guy's available and then you can't trade for him and you're also waiting around for the potential of something else to free up, because as the week goes by and they don't sign DJ LeMahieu, the starters go down, the relievers go down, and then you eventually get to the point in February where you haven't done that much, and we get COVID's weird and all that sort of stuff, but we're beating a dead horse if we talk about it anymore, but that's where we're kind of at. As far as other topics of conversation, and there obviously is not a whole bunch considering the Yankees haven't made any moves in the offseason, but there was a big story that came out the other day on ESPN from Marly Rivera. She had an opportunity to sit down and have a Q&A with Gary Sanchez, and it was a very interesting article. I know you guys both took a look at it, and we shared it in our OLIP group chat. Pretty much the headline tells it all, and we'll go a little bit deeper than just the headline, but the headline was, quote, "I didn't know why I wasn't playing. Gary Sanchez on getting benched in the playoffs and his future with the New York Yankees." And Marly Rivera goes in depth with her conversation with Gary Sanchez and gives us a look into what sort of happened. And as far as the Spark Notes is concerned, and we can kind of go a little bit deeper in the quotes when we play them, but the Spark Notes was that Gary felt that he worked hard this year, that he went through the process, and that there were a couple of factors that contributed, but that he felt that the Yankees did not communicate with him at all as the season progressed, and that he had mixed signals between why he wasn't playing and whether or not he was being rested for rest's sake or whether or not he was actually being benched, and that it eventually got to the point in the playoffs where the New York Yankees were just kind of like, we're going with Higgy, and didn't tell him why he wasn't playing anymore. Look, here's the thing. The three of us are not idiots, and the Yankees universe, so to speak, is not idiots. Gary Sanchez was being benched because he sucked ass. That's the reason why, to put it lightly. There's the reason why. He batted 140, and he couldn't, catch his way out of a paper bag. But I guess he needed a little bit more of an update from the Yankees. It seems like they are over that hill. He talks about in the article how he had a good conversation with Boone after the season. But cry me a river on the headline, because nothing I read in this article takes away from the fact that it's like, as hard as this guy works, as much as he wants to be a Yankee, and as much as he goes out there to say that Yankee fans expect me to perform and they will boo me if I don't and they will cheer me if I do, you know why you're benched, and it's because you were terrible.
Yeah, I think he knows that too. And I think so. Listen, I have no idea what it's like to be a professional athlete. I don't know what it's like to be in a locker room or a clubhouse. So I don't know if an explanation, as Gary puts it, is something that's owed to him in that situation of being benched. I just don't have that perspective. I would be interested to hear from a more veteran player or a retired player on that. I would really be curious to hear CC Sabathia's take on it on his podcast, maybe if it comes up. But so that is sort of where I feel is my disconnect with this, because it seems obvious to me and you and everyone else, and probably to Gary too, but maybe he feels the team and his boss, so to say, and Aaron Boone owes him a reason for why he's not playing. So listen, I think Gary has the right perspective elsewhere in terms of, using this as a motivational tool to improve and get better for this coming season, because that is the most important thing. This is all in the past now. He's the starting catcher. That is not a debate anymore. There was a little bit of a, conversation about it in, end of October, early November, but that's out the window now. So I was impressed with his perspective on things in terms of like, I understand that I didn't get the job done and I really need to do better. So I'm going to go to the Dominican League. And that was his decision. I'm going to go to the Dominican League and I'm going to make up for lost time, because I lost so many months and due to COVID and so many at-bats due to my poor play that I need to ramp it up quicker and stay active and get better. That's kind of what I'm choosing to focus on. And that is encouraging to me.
I agree.
Yeah. I think it basically sounds like he was in denial, right?
Yeah.
And what Josh said, like, I've never been the best at anything, like at the top of my game at anything except binging TV shows. I'm very good at that, but that's neither here or there. That's for my TV podcast show. I'm just kidding. But anyway, back to Gary. I just feel like he was just in denial a little bit. Maybe he needs to hear that, yeah, dude, you suck. We're going with Higgins. Maybe he had, no, seriously, like, again, we never been in that situation, so maybe he needed to hear that. I don't know why, because as Julian was saying, like, yeah, you should realize that you haven't been producing, so we're going to go with Higgy. We're going to switch it up, maybe spark this lineup a little bit more, especially behind the plate or something like that. So, again, I will always be appreciative of Gary's work ethic. I know people call him lazy and stuff, but it does look like, you hear from A-Rod and all that stuff, and the Winter League, that it does appear that he does put the work in. So you're appreciative of that. But in the end, it doesn't matter about work ethic if the results are not on the field. And yes, Gary's a starter going into this season, and it seems like, I will say, this is probably his last shot, his final opportunity to establish himself as the Yankees starting catcher of the future. And I know we bash on him, but we want him to do well. We don't want to sit here and bash on these players for not producing. We'd rather sit here and be like, yeah, man, we love this guy. Another home run, another hit, look at him behind the plate. Like, we want to be supportive of these players. We're going to have to see, Gary. This is your time, and I hope you put it all out in the open in this article with Marley Rivera, and I hope you have a good season this year because we want you to. So we're going to see.
There were some other interesting quotes in there in regards to things that happened over the course of the season. One that was interesting was obviously the decision to kind of make Kyle Higashioka the everyday catcher for Garrett Cole. He was asked whether or not that was sort of the team's decision or how it kind of happened and how it went into that. And what he had mentioned was that the last time he had remembered catching Garrett, they gave up a few home runs, and then after that, he didn't catch him again. And that he said that he felt the first time he just thought was a day off in the rotation. And then after that, he just sort of saw that it was Higgy who was getting the opportunity to catch him. And that was how it persisted into the playoffs. And at one point, he even notes that he had a good game in Cleveland, he felt. And then after that game in Cleveland, and I don't know the one that he's talking about, because what I remember was that game in Cleveland where he struck out, 3 separate times in game 2 or whatever it was with men on base or whatever wound up happening. But he mentions that he had that game in Cleveland that he thought was pretty good. And then as soon as the bubble hit, that first game was caught by Garrett Cole. So it seemed by the time the playoffs came around, he was kind of used to the idea that he was not Garrett Cole's regular catcher. But he did say that he wants to catch every single one of their Yankees pitchers, all of them. If I am only catching one pitcher, then I will only play one day, and I want to play every single day. Motivation's there. We love to hear that. Obviously helps. I will say this. We've all said it. The Yankees' biggest pain in the butt with him as a catcher is that they worry too much about him as a catcher. If he is going to catch Garrett Cole and any one of these pitchers, I am fine with it. But I'm not looking at him for his defense. I just want him to hit.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it again because Gary kind of alludes to it in this article. They've messed around with his defense so much that there's no way it hasn't affected his entire game. And he basically says as much, and I'm going to read it. He says, I understand that the team is trying to help me, and I like that. I know all they want me to do is all they want to see is me improve. But this offseason, I have to focus on trying to recover that form from last year and be able to mix everything that I improved upon by lowering my right knee. So he's talking about the adjustment he made to lower his knee when he receives the ball so that he can, get pitches in the zone lower and frame them better. What he's kind of getting at is that, listen, I know they want to see me do better. And these are the kind of things that they're looking for me to improve upon. But I need to make sure that I play better like the 2019 Gary Sanchez instead of the 2020 Gary Sanchez. He's saying that the coaching, while helpful, and, he appreciates that the goal is to make him the best player he can be. I think he's saying he wants to dial it back a little bit and kind of just go back to the way he was before, because we've said it. If he's hitting, 30 homers and driving in 90 runs, we'll live with, the questionable so-so defense.
I mean, look at the playoff game last year. If you told me Gary Sanchez was going to hit a 3-run home run in the game and the Yankees win it, but they win it like 5-3 because he had 3 pass balls, and in that sequence where Higgy stopped all those balls, I would have said yes, give me that, because we all know that what he could be as an offensive powerhouse means more to them winning games than anything he could do behind the plate.
Yeah, and he says later on in that section about the coaching and everything is that he's never caught with his right knee down on the ground before. He never threw to second base with his right knee down. But so these are things that take a lot of time to improve upon. Just because you have spring training, which by the way was cut short this year, and then they had like 3 weeks to get ready again at summer camp, that's not enough time to implement all these changes to his game and expect them to go all smoothly and him to play well. He's saying, I didn't have the time that I needed. I've never done this before. It messed him up. It messed up the rest of his defense. He didn't throw runners out as well. The framing was what it was, but the offense was terrible. They need to simplify. They need to dumb it down for him, I think. And he's saying it. I
think, yeah. I mean, he, like you said, I am appreciative that he's upfront about it. And I guess if you're the Yankees, I guess if you want this guy to be back to his old form, he's saying it just to listen to Gary Sanchez more, be a little more communicative, you know what I mean? Communicate more with him. And I think in the article it says that, they didn't mention to him why he was being benched. We said that. But he did have a good conversation with Aaron Boone afterwards, after the season. So you hope those relations can build and they could communicate more and just get Gary back to the old Gary that we knew back, whether it's 2019, 2017, August. I mean, the years keep going back and back, right? But yeah, I guess just hopefully the Yankees can just simplify things, as you said, Josh.
It's humorous because if I said to you, remind me of a defensive miscue that Gary Sanchez made in 2016 when he came up as a rookie, or 2017, can either of you guys give me one?
I can think of one in 2017.
Me too.
I think game 2 of the ALCS.
Yep. He flat out dropped the ball.
Where he dropped the ball on a walk-off hit. I forgot who got the hit, and I forgot who scored.
It was probably Correa's stupid ass, but
it was Correa was involved in something.
I think it was Correa.
Gary
dropped the ball on the throw from Judge, right? That's the one I could think.
That's the biggest one, and obviously it is big circumstances. But I would say outside of that, for a guy who we have railed for about 5 years, maybe or less, 4 or 5 seasons, as being a bad defensive catcher, there are not that many huge defensive miscues that we can think of. But we can both tell you how good he was offensively in 2016 when he came up and honestly could have won Rookie of the Year that year, and then also was an offensive force outside of the playoffs really in 2017 and batted over 275 and drove in a ton of homers and a ton of RBIs. So I guess what I'm kind of getting at is, if he goes back to what that was offensively by just going back to the mediocre catcher he was when he came up here, which was throwing out guys because he was good at it and letting balls past you, then we probably all deal with it because he would start batting at that same clip, or in theory he would. Yeah. So I definitely think that sort of plays, because as bad as a guy defensively was, outside of that game 2 pass ball, which was huge, I think we would all be hard-pressed to be like, all right, well, there was this, and then there was that, and, oh, yeah, he made that terrible defensive miscue. And sometimes he lucks into shit. What was it with the Chapman play where he missed the ball, and then he got it back, and he still was able to throw him out? So it's like every now and then I would put up with some of those goofy-ass things to just know that I'm getting 275, 30, and 100 from this guy who we're all supposed to expect is this big-time catcher. Because if he's not going to do that and he's not going to be good defensively, then he's a waste.
Yeah, and do you guys remember, maybe you'll remember better than I do, but I kind of feel like the whole, Gary's a bad defensive catcher stuff started to really become more of a narrative with the fan base in 2018. And that was also his first horrific season in the majors. I don't know if you guys, correct me if I'm wrong.
Like
maybe
it was, for me, I really felt like it was mid 2017 because I kind of remember by time that the error happened with Altuve scoring on the runaround or Correa scoring on the runaround in game 2, I feel like there was a narrative that was out there that was this guy is not good at blocking balls behind the plate and he is not good at being in the right spot defensively. And then I definitely think in 2018, where he had the injuries and he couldn't stay healthy, that's when the like lazy, bad defensive catcher persona kind of started to follow him. And he does talk in this article about the idea of him being lazy, but he says he works hard and that he worked every single day during the offseason, even after spring training got canceled. So, it seems like Gary knows that the idea that he needs to be better than what he is there, but the Yankees got to help him, I guess.
One of my favorite tweets that I'm laughing at it right now.
Did you tweet it yourself?
That I tweeted about because you're talking about Gary.
Yourself on the back.
Yeah, I am. It's just like it's a simple tweet, but it's just like for being a catcher, Gary sure can't catch the ball. So that's just laughing at what you guys were saying.
Is that supposed to be funny?
It was funny to me.
And when did you tweet that?
Actually, I don't know. There's been a lot of Gary Sanchez.
I thought you were looking at it.
No,
but
I put it.
Well, if you had been looking at it, it would have helped us out because then we could have found out when the narrative
exactly.
In 2018, I said, why can't Sanchez catch the ball? That was in 2018. But yeah, enough about me reading my tweets.
I think basically the whole point of this, and it's accurate, is that we will talk less about the bad defense. And when I say we, I mean like the people who call into WFAN. We'll talk less about the bad defense if he's hitting 30 homers again and, not being an automatic strikeout. So, that's just what we want. We just want the offensive force back because he adds a whole different dimension and dynamic to the lineup that is sorely missed when he's going bad, and that's all we want.
All that time you spend on your right leg with the catching coaches, just go and put that extra hour in the cage and give us that, and then just stand there like Ham and Sandlot, just catch the ball. You don't have to be that much better than that, I don't think. Before we wrap up here, guys, we had kind of teased it over the last couple of podcasts. It finally premiered on HBO Max. That is the CC Sabathia documentary, which really goes into his life, his struggle with alcoholism. Of course, touches on the time where he left the Yankees right before that big playoff game against Houston with, knowing he was going to check himself into rehab. So having gotten the chance to now see that it's out and watch it a little bit, why don't you guys talk about what your thoughts were?
I loved it. I pretty much would love anything CC related because he's one of my favorite players ever, but his story, I didn't really know that much about him, to be honest with you. I mean, I knew obviously the stuff that was public in 2015, but I didn't really know much about his life before that. And it was nice to get a look at that, an inside look at it. And he's been through a lot, and the fact that he's made it to where he's made it, and a future Hall of Famer, it's pretty awesome and miraculous. I would even say, considering the circumstances in which he grew up in and sort of like what he's been through since that time. And you get a really good sense of, the upbringing he had. And he seems like overall just a really, really good guy. And I'm happy that, he's getting this sort of spotlight because I don't really think he ever had as big of a star as he was in baseball. I don't think he was, a larger than life figure outside of it. And it's cool to see him get, some recognition that this story will probably touch a lot of people who have HBO and stumble upon it. And I think it's great. And, I think everyone should watch it.
Yeah, my friend who's not even a big baseball guy watched it and he texted me and he said how incredible it was. Yeah, man. I mean, I think it's a must watch for everyone, baseball fan or not baseball fan. It's just very powerful to see, as Joshua was alluding. I knew about, I think it was 2015 when that story came out? I remember.
Yeah. It was right before they played Houston.
The Astros. We don't have to talk about that wild card game. Tanaka, love you. Pitch well.
Now you're talking
offense
about
couldn't hit. I hear talking about it.
There he goes.
Goes into a full thing. Yeah, we have men on base here. And okay, that's for another podcast when we can critique every situation back in the past. But yeah, man, I didn't know that, as Josh was saying, that he was struggling with alcoholism like back in the mid 2000s, and just seeing his journey, just seeing, it's just you see how genuine of a good guy he is. I don't know how anyone could not like this guy, and for anyone suffering with this disease, it's just I can imagine that just seeing his journey and seeing this can just be incredible for them. And I feel like we don't really, with pro athletes, not a lot of people are public about it, and you don't really know what they're going through in the inside, and like behind the scenes. We always just tweet about them on the field and on the court and or anywhere. And it's just incredible to see like where he started and how he got through it and where he is now. It's definitely a recommend for everyone to watch. It was a great documentary.
I feel like back in 2015, when we first all heard about it, everybody who was a Yankee fan had the same reaction, which is like, get right, CC, we're rooting for you, and go out there and get your mind in the right place. And it was right before that playoffs, and it was interesting to see. But I think the thing that was so awesome after that was that he did get through it, and then he came back to pitch really well in 2016 and be such a key cog for them when they had the playoff run in 2017, and literally pitched up until 2019 where he blew his arm off on the mound and couldn't come back and pitch anymore, but he went out his way. And so in a year where I think a lot of us are sitting at home and we're struggling, and Americans are struggling because of COVID and stuff like that, it's awesome to see somebody like CC get their story told about the struggles he's had in his life and how it hasn't always been, the greatest, and that there have been issues with him, even with the contracts and with the family that he loves and the way that he's gone through life, but then also to kind of show that you can recover from that, and that you can go out there and you can get help, and that nobody's too big to do it. And, it goes for him, or it goes for Craig Carton, who had his own documentary on HBO about his gambling addiction. But it's like, it gives you an interesting inside perspective of people who are famous but are struggling with issues that everyday Americans or everyday people in the world struggle with all the time, and just what it means to go out there and ask for help and to have somebody out there who will help you. So it's on HBO. It's a great documentary if you have HBO Max, and would definitely encourage, like you guys, to have everybody watch it and enjoy it. And whether you like CC or not, whether you're a baseball fan or not, it's always good to hear a story about somebody who struggled but had an opportunity to overcome it.
I think he mentioned it actually in the documentary. Chris Young, former Yankee outfielder, when this whole thing happened and CC said, I need to get help. And Chris Young, who's apparently one of his close friends in the game, said, if you do this now, you're a hero to everyone, because everyone's going to find out about it because it's right before the playoffs. And
Yes.
CC said something clicked in his head at that moment, that he said, I need to do this because I can be, an inspiration to somebody else to get themselves help. And so, I think that's exactly what he is.
And doesn't that play into the idea of what we always thought with him with the Yankees, which is that he was a leader, that he was like the man in the Yankees clubhouse? And that's awesome to see, because it's like, for a guy who we all looked at as the guy who took over as captain after Jeter left, it's like that proves that he goes above and beyond for people that aren't just him.
Yeah, and I think he was a perfect representative of the Yankees, what the Yankees are about, on and off the field. I think he's a perfect representative, and I'm glad he's, rooted in, New Jersey, in the area, and is a part of the front office as a special advisor. I'm very happy that he's a part of this organization, and probably will be for a very long time.
And that he got the ring.
And he got the ring
in his first year.
In his first year. And when he goes to the Hall of Fame, there will be an NY on his hat. And I'm as a Yankee fan, this is the kind of guy I'm proud to root for, that I'm proud to, to say is one of my all-time favorite players.
Yep.
That's the guy. That's the model.
E-Ray, anything else?
No, nothing to add, man. Again, just I, as well, am just proud that CC Sabathia is wearing pinstripes, wore pinstripes in his career. He put it all out on the field. The ultimate competitor, teammate, leader. I mean, any adjective that's supportive or great is CC Sabathia. And you saw when he would throw it, if one of our guys got thrown at, he would go out on the mound and throw back at you. He always had our team's back. And you kind of saw, these clubhouse guys matter. And maybe him not being in the clubhouse this past year was big, And speaking of clubhouse guys, I know this is totally not with CC Sabathia anymore, but I guess we can transition now because, I always have to bring something up at the end. Is we lost someone in a clubhouse guy, Tommy Canley, over the last 2 weeks. He's going to the Dodgers, and that's another guy that we're going to miss in the clubhouse. So, yeah, man, these clubhouse guys matters. So we'll see. Speaking of clubhouse guys, we'll see if Brett Gardner comes back, but he's gonna wait. He's waiting till DJ and everyone else gets resolved.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Tommy Canley, we talked about it on previous episode of the podcast. That would have been nice to see maybe the Yankees take a flyer on him like they did some of these minor league guys. They didn't. The LA Dodgers did. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him and whether or not he has a bounce back year whenever he returns from Tommy John surgery. As for the CC documentary, it's called Under the Grapefruit Tree, the CC Sabathia story. It is on HBO.com. If you have HBO Max, you can watch it there. Us three, all highly recommend it. As far as that's concerned, boys, hopefully, at least in the next couple of days, if not the next week, by the time we record the next episode of the podcast, we have an opportunity to see somebody sign. Please, for the love of God, give us something to talk about, New York Yankees. But outside of that, you usually bring something up here, so I'll let you start. Any final thoughts?
I have one more thing.
Wow.
Torres is going to get some at-bats in the Winter League in the next coming week. So Gleyber Torres is going to put down his controller of Call of Duty, and he's going to get back out there and get some practice swings. So you go,
Gleyber. It was Brian Cashman, and we talked about it last time, I believe, and if we didn't, we can bring it up now, which was he said he showed up to camp fat. So we are hoping that Gleyber does put down the controller and hits the weights a little bit, so that way – he does come into the game, in shape. Because you know what? I'm sick of Fernando Tatis being the hot young thing in Major League Baseball. I love Fernando Tatis again. Though. He's awesome. Great player. But he's only 22, and it was awesome 2 years ago. Now we want that back. We want 24-year-old Gleyber killing it this year, being an MVP candidate.
Seconded.
Anything for you, Josh, before we wrap things up here?
I think if we record a week from today, which would be January 5th, I believe.
Yes.
I think in the days after that, from January 6th until the following Tuesday, one of the big free agents will sign. So I don't think it will happen before we come back on. I think it will happen after our next one.
Wow. So we get one more podcast of hopefully treading water as we try and come up with topics to discuss. And at a minimum, maybe we'll get some MLB rules in the next week. That's something at a minimum.
That'd be nice.
For.
I'll say this.
If not, Josh says after January 5th. All right, E-Ray, bring us home. Final thought.
I'll say this. I will go up one more, and I'll say who the guy is going to be signed. It won't be you, and it won't be for the Yankees, but I think it's going to be George Springer.
For the Mets? I agree.
And if that does not happen, what are you wagering? You doing a mustard spot on camera?
You have to shave your beard and grow your hair.
No way. The beard is here.
You got to do something.
No,
Fire yourself in the face. You said it. You said you were going to do it one better. So if you're going to do it one better, you got to.
I didn't put anything on the line.
What? Well, now you have to, or else I'm not counting it. Pie yourself in the face. Pie yourself in the face. Get like a tin, and if you're wrong, you fill it with whipped cream, and then you pie yourself. Will you do that?
Fine.
Will you do that? All right, he's doing it. Wow. It's in here. It's on camera. He said it. That's happening. If George Springer,
I don't even know what I agreed on. I already forgot.
These are the steps. George Springer has to be the first big free agent to sign. I'm not going to say the day after, but he has to be the first one. If he is not, then you got to pie yourself. So if DJ signs before him, Trevor Bauer signs before him, anybody else who's a big free agent signs before George Springer, doesn't have to be the Mets either, but signs before George Springer, you got to pie yourself in the face.
Okay.
All right, it's down. It's in there. So look out for the pie, folks. As always, you can check out new episodes of Our Little Yankees Podcast. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Music. We have an episode on YouTube. E-Ray's so stressed right now that he just agreed to that. I can see it on camera.
I got pressured.
Yep, and you can listen to us wherever podcasters can be found. I'm Julian. As always, they're E-Ray and Josh. We'll catch you next time, folks.